My specialty is aerospace engineering of transmission designs, so I'm very comfortable with gears, bearings, and all those kinds of things. So I speak from a position of somewhat authority in this issue. Anyway, I bought my first torque converter clutch the other day, a TAV30. I'm going to use it in a project. I'm thinking about it. And I was modeling the separate pieces in the software SolidWorks so I could manipulate the thing in my computer. And as I was working with it, I noticed some strange dimension stack-ups. I had read I had watched quite a few videos on YouTube about how to put these things together. And there's one point that the majority of the people are doing it wrong. And the result of doing it the way they're saying to do it is to burn up those two bearings that the driven clutch runs on. These guys right here, that one there, and that one right there. These are just standard ball bearings with the rubber seals on both sides of them. So they're great for carrying radial load, like a regular ball bearing would, but they're not good on axial load going up and down this way. When you do that, you'd use a bearing more like a tapered roller bearing, like say in your the hub of your trailer. But ball bearings don't like to be pushed on the side. In fact, if you put a lot of load on them and then spin them fast, it will do all sorts of things. It will Burnell the bearings, put flat spots on them, and then it'll chew up the race that they're running in, and there'll be what's called coarse grain spalling, and this hardened surface of the bearing race will break into little pieces, and your bearings are shot. So you definitely don't want to do that. So anyway, in the assembly, you've got this shaft. It's got a circlip on the end of it there, and it's actually a short section of it is a little bit over 5/8 of an inch in diameter. This area right here is 17 millimeters. So anyway, it goes in there, and the circlip comes up against the bearing. That's great, no problem there. And then on this side, there's a little teeny bit of that 17 millimeter shaft that sticks out past the end of the bearing there. And that's the super important part that most people are missing. What most of the people say is they take this washer with the key in it, the keyway in it, and after you put the 3/16 key in there, it can come up against the bearing right there. That's no problem. But anyway, you put this washer on, and then you put whichever sprocket you've chosen on. And the majority of the people that do that put these together on videos, put them on in this order. Now the trouble is that washer, the bore of that washer is big enough that it gets up over the shoulder of the 17 millimeter and it pushes straight on the bearing. So then when you put the sprocket on, you're pushing on the washer, and the washer's pushing on the bearing. And then when you put the nut on the end, and I've seen most guys take an impact wrench and they go on the end there, guess what? The nut is pushing on the clutch, that's pushing on the sprocket, that's pushing on the washer, that's pushing on the bearing, and it's pulling on the bearing on this side. So when you put load on this thread out here, you're actually crushing those two bearings together with as much torque as you put on when you tighten that nut. I guarantee you that that'll fry those bearings. It also makes it harder to roll. It puts quite a bit of stiffness into the bearing, so you lose some performance issues there too. The way you're supposed to put these on, and even this one when it came in the box was assembled and they had this washer on first, it's just not right. The way you should do it to make this thing work right is you put the sprocket on first, and then you put the washer on. Now the sprocket's bore is tighter than the bore on the washer, so it actually hits that 17 millimeter shoulder. So now when you put tension on this thing and push, listen to this. See that? There's about 50 thousandths, maybe 30 thousandths movement back and forth. So when I put the clutch on here, am I putting it on the right way? Yeah, that's right, yeah. If I put the clutch on there, this outside washer, and then I put this nut on, and I tighten it all the way down tight. I'm not going to do that right now, but if I'm going to push on it right here, so I got tension on it. So I'm tightly I'm tightly stacked up from here all the way down to the shoulder of that 17 millimeter shoulder. And listen to this. See, there's a little teeny bit of play sideways, so no matter how tight you tighten that nut, you won't crush those bearings because the sprocket is resting on that 17 millimeter shoulder. So you got a little bit of play. Now the thing's going to roll really easily, and you don't have any preload on the bearings, so the bearings aren't going to fail. So anyone putting these things together, put the sprocket on first and then that washer with a key, not the other way around. Anyway, thanks for watching.